Today's edition of MacVoices is supported by MacVoices Magazine, our free Flipboard magazine that brings you some of the best Mac, iPhone, and iPad productivity tips on the web. High in signal, low in noise, just like MacVoices, MacVoices Magazine includes information on how you can get more out of your Apple technology. Subscribe at macvoices.com/magazine or search for MacVoices Magazine on Flipboard. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, we're back again with another discussion of something that is changing so fast and so furious, and it seems like we can't have a discussion here on MacVoices about anything without discussing privacy of some kind. That's why I was so glad to see Joe Kissell update to the third edition his Take Control of Your Online Privacy, because it's such a hot topic. Joe, welcome back. It's great to have you.
Nice to be here as always.
So it feels like we didn't talk that long ago when the second edition came out, and yet now we have a third edition, and as we were saying pre-show, it just seems like so much is changing, and it's changing so fast.
Yeah, well, obviously, in the last year or so since the last edition, corporations and the government have been working tirelessly to increase everyone's privacy and make sure that there's no possibility that private...
What have you been drinking, Joe?
Yeah, it's specially flavored water.
Uh-huh.
No, that's Kool-Aid.
Okay.
Yeah, so no one has really been doing the general public any favors in last year when it comes to online privacy. Things have... I mean, by basically any measure, things have been getting dramatically worse. Consumers have less protection now than they had before. There have been more leaks, more hacks, more lousy laws passed, more revelations about things the NSA is doing, and companies, small and large, going out of their way to get more and more and more data at really any price. It's kind of appalling. So as is so often the case, when I started updating this book, I had a fairly short list of things that I thought would need to be addressed. And as I started going through and looking at every single topic and then looking at news stories and talking to other people, it's like, oh man, that too. Oh, that thing as well. Oh man, it's bad. It's really, there's just so much hurt out there when it comes to privacy. It's getting harder and harder to maintain. So there's a lot of new stuff in the book. It's not, this is not a happy book. It's not a cheery book. It's not everything's going to be fine. Just follow these 5 easy steps. No. It's basically like, this sucks. You can possibly, in some limited respects, make it suck less. But when you get to the limit of what you can do to make it not suck, you should at least be aware of what the problems are and what you are giving away and how and to whom, and kind of know what your situation is. But I can't sugarcoat it. Sugarcoat it. That sounds like I'm Canadian. I can't sugarcoat it. It's not a pleasant situation. It is very, very hard for anyone to keep their information private on the internet.
Oh, wow. Okay, so let's try to break this down in some logical fashion. I guess I see a number of different tiers. My first tier, my most important tier, is to try to protect myself from somebody stealing from me. Okay, whether you define stealing as identity theft, credit card theft, getting into your bank account, your brokerage account, or whatever, that's my first and biggest concern. I'm a little less concerned if they know what I'm watching on TV, but I don't want them putting their hand in my pocket.
I actually talk about people watching what you watch on TV. That's maybe something we'll come back to later.
Okay.
Okay. So your bank, any financial institution, basically any place you go on the web that involves a transfer of money, those sorts of websites and accounts have always pretty much always been protected by SSL or TLS. So what that means is that when when your web browser or other app connects to their site, the transfer of information between the two is encrypted, and generally speaking, it is very, very hard for someone else to intercept that. So in a kind of trivial sense, for those kinds of things like making online purchases, there's not a whole lot to worry about kind of on the surface. Beneath the surface, there are some worries. One of those worries is that SSL has had some issues. There have been cases where, root certificates got spoofed, and various other sorts of things kind of broke in the infrastructure of SSL. And when these kinds of things are discovered, they're usually fixed quite promptly. But I just want to make the point that any kind of security system that you may use, any sort of measure you may use to protect your privacy, however foolproof it may seem, someone will probably find, if you'll probably find a big enough fool, right? So sooner or later, someone is likely to find a hole, a deficiency, a weakness. The calendar is going to flip over some date, and nobody ever thought that this would happen. Oh, yeah, we forgot about that. So stuff happens. Most of us should feel pretty secure most of the time with things like online purchases. However, as I've talked about a couple of times, there's the actual transaction that goes on between you and your bank or the merchant, and then there's the other stuff. So if you're in a cafe and you pull your credit card out of your wallet and you're sitting in there typing in numbers, somebody can be looking over your shoulder and copying those down. I mean, you hand your credit card over to merchants in stores all the time, and it's actually pretty easy to get a hold of your credit card number and expiration date and the CVV code. So those are some of the reasons that banks have all these rules that protect consumers, because there are just so many different ways that your information can be stolen or guessed, or that fraudulent transactions can be made. And most of the time, your bank will protect you. You should store your credit card numbers in a password manager with a really strong password. You should use two-factor authentication whenever that's allowed or possible. You should take all the steps that you reasonably can to protect financial data and other things that can cause you real harm. It won't ever be completely foolproof, but you don't want to put your password on a sticky note on your monitor. You want to treat your bank and financial information with due caution.
Joe, I don't want to derail us. Okay, so I'm just going to take us just a little bit down this path. But
sure.
One thing that I have a bit of a hot point on is the banks out there that require Windows Explorer, in particular, to use to conduct business. Now, this is a little more on the enterprise side, but I'm still seeing some that, oh no, we require Internet Explorer. They don't even require Edge; they require Internet Explorer, and it just blows me away. And and I want to say, okay, that's fine. Let's change banks.
Yeah, that's what I would say, honestly. I mean, let's forget the whole different platform situation. Even if we're only talking about Windows, Internet Explorer is not the most up-to-date technology, right? And it's not the best browser. It's not the most secure browser, and Microsoft isn't giving it a whole lot of love right now. So, I get really unhappy when sites require Flash, because Flash is clunky and it's insecure and it's resource heavy and it's so last century. And requiring Internet Explorer just seems like sins piled upon sins. First of all, no service should ever be browser specific, ever. Every modern business should be able to work on any modern browser on any platform. If your site doesn't work on Chrome, doesn't work on Firefox, I mean, even forget Safari, just like other Windows browsers, if your site doesn't work on normal, up-to-date, modern browsers, especially Edge, which is like the actual current modern browser from Microsoft, then, honestly, I think such businesses are only going to learn that it is in their best interest to get with the program by losing customers. So I'm with you. If the possibility exists within that enterprise context to switch banks, I would switch banks, because damn.
Well, and this is not anti-Windows, and that's not where I'm going with this. It's really more anger at the banking industry. But where I specifically wanted to go is when we talk about those SSL layers and all, and the little lock appearing, up in your website that you've got an HTTPS connection.
Yeah.
You still, if you're using Explorer in particular, that doesn't mean you are exercising all the security that is available to you out there. Is that a correct statement?
Yes. Well, in fact, I just read, I don't know how this applies to Internet Explorer. It probably doesn't. But just the other day, I read about this exploit that is applicable to Firefox and to certain versions of Chrome, where you go to a website and you look up in the address bar, and it looks like you're going to exactly the correct URL, and it's in green. It has a little lock icon and everything. That looks perfectly good to me. It is an encrypted connection, and the website is cool. Except it isn't really the right website. What has happened is that the domain owner has purchased a Unicode domain, and they have a bunch of different other letters, a bunch of Unicode characters, which, when represented in your address bar, because they're translated from the raw Unicode into symbols, they look like www dot or whatever.
Wow.
So because there are symbols that look like a dot that are not a period, for example, in Unicode. So there was this proof of concept where here's the real website, here's our fake website. They look identical, they look encrypted. The lock is there, the certificate is there, but one of them went to totally the wrong site. Now, Safari, as an example, does not have this problem because it correctly shows the URL as it really is underneath. The very, very, very latest version of Chrome does that too. I'm not sure what the case is with Internet Explorer, but that is just one example of a way in which a consumer could be misled by a phishing email or something to go to the wrong website, even though it really, really looks like it should be secure.
Okay, that's. Based on the previous part of the discussion, I just want to make sure that you do have to pay attention to your software, folks. You just can't assume that because you've got that lock, and then Joe just scared us a little more. Because even if you do have the lock, and even if you do have modern software, maybe you're not on the right spot. So,
right. The real message here is be really careful how you get to sites. So if you get to a site by typing in the URL, you're going to type in the right URL. If you have the URL stored in your password manager, your bookmark list, or whatever, you're going to go to the right URL. But if you get a link in email or in your calendar app or in an instant messaging app or on Facebook, and you click this link, it could very, very likely send you to a fake location. Sometimes anti-spam software and other kinds of security software will catch these kinds of things, but not always. So it is something to pay very close attention to. Okay,
so that's keeping their hands out of my pockets a little bit.
Right.
I mentioned TV. Is that something you want to touch on?
So, there was this thing that you probably heard about fairly recently about smart TVs and how they might actually be kind of watching you and listening to you and reporting back to to the manufacturer or to various other entities. It's super creepy. It can totally happen. So if you're, depending on which brand and model of TV you have and how it's configured, it could absolutely be the case that your TV is doing anything from the relatively innocuous reporting back what shows you're watching, although even that I have some problems with, as I'll get to in a moment, to the literally recording or broadcasting video and audio of what's happening in your living room. The problem with TVs is that you have a lot less control over what's going on with the hardware of your TV than you do with a regular computer or tablet or whatever. I mean, you can install antivirus software or snooping software of various kinds on your Mac. You can't really do that on your TV. You might not be aware when the microphone is turned on or when the camera is turned on. You have no way of knowing what's going on behind the scenes. It's a very hard problem to solve. I also talk in the book about these gadgets like Amazon Echo, Google Home, like all these like speakers and different products that you can just have in your house, and you talk to them and you say one of those phrases that I won't say because it'll
thank you.
Devices will start going off. But you say one of those phrases and it does something, but in order to respond when you say that phrase, this device has to be listening all the time. It doesn't just start listening when you say that phrase, it's listening all the time so that it knows when you say that phrase. And there have already been court cases where, somebody is trying to go to Amazon or Google or whoever to say, oh, we need the audio recordings from this device, this home of this time to, in the process of trying to prosecute a crime that occurred or a lawsuit or something. And that is just super creepy. I get how convenient they are, and I'm not saying that we should give up all convenience. I'm not, I do have a tinfoil hat back there just for, show, but I'm not a tinfoil hat kind of a guy. I like technology, and I understand that there are certain trade-offs have to be made between privacy and convenience. I am, a little more toward the privacy end of the scale than I think most people are. But this this whole idea that some box that I voluntarily buy and set up in my living room might be recording every word that is said there to be somehow randomly used against me in court at some future day, mind-blowing. I don't like that idea. Don't like it at all. So there's a lot more to be aware of, and in some cases, honestly, I just don't have good advice. I can say, well, don't buy a smart TV. Good luck. Or do some research, buy a brand with a better reputation, or don't buy a brand that has a built-in camera or some such thing. But at a certain point, it's kind of a lost cause. We're all going to have a bunch of smart devices in all of our houses, and we're just not going to know. There's no way to know what they all do behind the scenes, and that's the thing that is genuinely concerning.
On the TVs, quick question there. I've actually heard advice going both ways, that it might be better to upgrade every single time an update comes out, because ostensibly they're all security updates. Or just don't. Just leave it the way it was, because those updates add not only features that you might not want, along with the features you might, but also security vulnerabilities.
As we've talked about in other contexts, I generally come down in favor of update all the time to get the security fixes. You are correct that sometimes in those sorts of situations, there could be, worse privacy things that happen, but the only way to know is to study the release notes of every single thing and then manually make a decision. Do I want this update? Do I want that update? As a sort of global option, I would tend to lean toward the updates. I did, however, allude to something else with regard to TV. And I said that it was relatively innocuous for your TV provider to know what you're watching. I mean, obviously, Netflix knows everything I watch on Netflix, and Amazon knows everything I watch on Amazon, and Apple knows what I watch from the iTunes store. But where it gets a little bit dicey is where your TV provider, whether that's like your cable or DSL provider, or whether that's something like Netflix or Hulu, they also know when you are watching things. If they see that I am watching a thing in my house at a certain time, then they know that I'm home then. If they see that I am watching a thing on my tablet over a cellular connection, they know that I am not home then. If they know that nothing has been watched on my TV at home in the last 3 days, they know that either my family is all dead or we are not there. So that sort of information could be super useful to, I don't know, burglars. It is this sort of information can not only say, oh, well, he likes sci-fi shows, so we're going to show him, commercials for sci-fi shows. Well, that, whatever, fine. But it can be used for kind of more insidious applications like tracking your location and, let your imagination run wild a little bit, creepier things about your viewing habits and what can be inferred from them.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I hadn't thought about some of it exactly from that angle. So the answer is to leave my TV on all the time?
You could leave your TV on all the time. I actually know a family that does not own a TV. They're not technologically backwards. They have quite a few Macs. They have screens, iPhones, iPads, stuff. They don't have a TV. I respect that choice. I have a TV, so that is not my choice. But some people might decide to do things that way. Of course, as I just said, though, I mean, whether you're watching Netflix on your TV or on your Apple TV or on your MacBook or on your iPad or whatever, Netflix is still going to know what you're watching.
Yeah. Dicey. I'm thinking about every spy movie you've ever seen where they do the clandestine meetings in the bathroom and they turn the shower on or the faucet on so you get the white noise. And I'm thinking, okay, I just need to have a white noise generator everywhere.
Yeah, well, there's probably something to that. There are a lot of what I talk about in the book is not ways that you can absolutely shut down the possibility of an attacker getting at your stuff, but just to make life a lot less convenient from them so that if they aren't targeting you specifically, maybe they'll just move on and try to get some lower hanging fruit. Like, okay, I could spend all day trying to hack into this, but it's just not worth my time, so I'll go someplace else. And that's sort of my minimum bar for people who read this book is don't be the low hanging fruit. You're not going to have absolute perfect, complete privacy. And you're definitely not going to have complete anonymity, but you should at least not be like the first poor guy that the hackers get to because you chose password for your password and you didn't use encryption and you clicked on links and phishing messages. So at least don't be that guy, right?
Yeah. If you're being chased by a bear, I don't have to be faster than the bear. I just have to be faster than you.
That's exactly. It's funny that you mentioned bears because bears come up in mine. But did we talk about bears before?
No. Wouldn't bears come up in this book?
So, I have this thing in the book where I talk about, and I should add that. I should totally add that, where I talk about the differences among privacy and security and anonymity, because those terms are really interrelated, especially when it comes to digital stuff. But a lot of people sort of conflate privacy and security, and they don't quite grasp the difference. So I said, a bear will tell you everything you need to know about the differences among these terms. So like if you go to a zoo, you can see a bear from a very secure point of view. Like the bear is not going to hurt you. You're not going to hurt the bear. You're separated. You have security from each other. So you're mutually protected from harm. But neither one of you have privacy. You're out in public, the bear is out in public. You can see the bear can see you. So there's security, but there's no privacy. Now you can also flip that. You can have privacy with no security. So let's say you go camping in the woods and you're in a tent. Well, the tent gives you privacy nobody can see you inside the tent. But it doesn't offer any security because if a bear comes by, she'll just swipe right on through that tent and you're dead. Now, as for anonymity, the bear doesn't know who you are. So you're anonymous from the standpoint of the bear, but once your remains are identified, we'll all know who you were. So you've lost your anonymity. So I think that basically anything you need to know about privacy, security, and anonymity, you can explain with the bear. And I really like the, just outrun the other person analogy. I have to add that.
Feel free. It intrigues me that we're talking a lot here about I guess everything is online. I mean, because the book is your online privacy, but everything here has to do with online, even though my first gut reaction is some of it, I don't think of it as my online privacy. You tend to think of online privacy as we're sitting down to our computers and we're doing work and we're visiting websites, and you don't think about it when you're sitting at home watching Netflix or, sitting in the backyard watching Netflix on a tablet.
Do you have an electronic device within arm's reach? Is there a smartphone, a tablet, a TV, a smart light switch, a smart thermostat, a car, a computer? Like, is there anything that is in the same room as you? It's online, right? I taught one of the new things I talk about in the book, which it's an area of sadness and consternation, is crossing borders with electronics. This has been very much discussed in the news and the media lately. People get to the border, could be coming into the US, it could be going into or out of China or any place really. And this discussion about, well, what can the agents do there? And what happens if they open up your laptop and it's encrypted and you don't want to give them the password? What happens if they want into your cell phone that you don't give them your Touch ID or your password? And so I talk about this a bit in the book. It's a really touchy, dicey, weird kind of area, and there aren't any perfect solutions. But one of the things that customs agents have been doing lately, which I personally think is highly suspect from a legal point of view, but they're doing it anyway, is asking people for their social media passwords. Now, the fact that I might be traveling into a country with a laptop or a cell phone or whatever has, whatever might or might not be on that device has nothing to do with whether I have a Facebook account. So Facebook is online. I mean, I might access it using a browser on my phone or computer, or I might use an app, but nevertheless, it is an inherently online thing. And in my view, searching the contents of a device, however intrusive to one's privacy that might be, is a totally different thing from searching online archives of information about a person because you've given them a password. And that seems really galling to me, and I don't like it at all. I don't like the idea that a border agent can basically demand a social media password, can demand the password that unlocks your password manager, that gives them all of your other passwords. That doesn't seem like that can possibly be any sort of legal, but it does happen. And so this is an instance where you're really blurring the line between online privacy and personal, physical privacy. And I'm sure that as time goes on, the courts will have things to say about this, and laws will change for better or for worse. But right now, it's kind of scary crossing international borders with any kind of electronics.
Do you have any advice or suggestions for anyone should that happen? I mean, obviously, the first thing you want to do is change all your passwords, which is no small thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you have given someone a password, then immediately change it. If you've given someone the password to your password manager, you got to freaking change all those passwords, every last one of them. And I have like 1,000. So, So you can decline. You can decline to give the password. Of course you can. But if you decline, a couple of things are going to happen. One thing is that your devices will probably be impounded. The agents will take them. They will try to do a forensic analysis on them and copy all the information on them. They will give them back to you whenever they are darn well done with them, and that could be a long time. So you will be deviceless. They may or may not succeed at breaking into your device and actually getting the data out of it. They might detain you for hours to try to convince you to give up your passwords. If you're coming into the United States and you're a US citizen, they can't prevent you from entering the country, but they can definitely make life very unpleasant and uncomfortable for you. And of course, other countries have their own rules. If you're coming into the US as a non-citizen, they actually can prevent you from entering the country if you don't give them what they want. Moreover, whatever you do, whatever you say or do, will be held against you. So if you decline to give them your password just on general principles, they're going to assume that you're doing this because you have something to hide. And the next time you cross the border, you're going to get the third degree again. And they're going to start keeping an eye on you. So some people say, well, I'm going to solve this by just getting I'm going to get a burner phone with nothing on it. I'm going to wipe my hard drive before I cross the border so that it's just empty. Well, yeah, you can do that, but then they're going to say, why are you traveling with a wiped phone? That in itself it draws suspicion to you, right? You can say, well, I'm going to encrypt all the things that are on my hard drive. Well, sure, you should do that. That's a good idea. But then they're just going to demand that you give them the password. And if you don't, again, that puts you under suspicion. There are various other strategies that people have employed. One thing that I do not recommend is lying. Don't say that you forgot the password if you didn't forget the password, because they can actually throw you in jail for that. Don't do that. Don't lie. There are some really elaborate schemes that I have heard of. So Geoff Duncan, who edited this book, also just recently wrote an article on this very topic for TidBITS. And he says he knows a guy whose strategy was this. Before he crosses a border, he encrypts everything on his laptop with a super long random password. He writes it down. He hands that piece of paper to his lawyer. He literally does not know the password. Only his lawyer knows the password. So if he crosses the border and he's asked for his password, he can truthfully say he does not know it. And also, his lawyer can't give it to them because of attorney-client privilege. Okay, I guess that works. That wouldn't necessarily prevent them from impounding the laptop and, hanging on to it or, making a copy of the data. Wouldn't necessarily put them in the government's good graces, but it seems effective, although, really, are we all going to go through this process with a lawyer every time we cross an international border? I don't know, man. That's really hardcore. I guess if I had big enough secrets to protect, I might consider that, but golly.
Yeah. We're back to the inevitable discussion of convenience versus security and privacy.
Yeah.
And it's a real challenge. Joe, I know there's a lot of stuff in the book. I want to make sure I give you an opportunity to mention any other specific things. But one thing I definitely want to ask you about, do you touch on the whole VPN issue, given the recent ruling about selling or not selling our surfing data?
Boy, do I.
He did not set me up for that, folks.
No.
I genuinely asked the question.
I was going to bring it up. So I already did talk about VPNs in the previous edition of the book, but this time I say a lot more about them. So for anyone who doesn't know, a VPN, or virtual private network, basically means you either use some built-in software on your device or you download an app and you make your ordinary internet connection. That is, you connect to Wi-Fi or you connect to Ethernet or you do whatever you do to get on the internet. But then you run this app and you connect to a remote server in the cloud someplace. And once you've done that, all of the traffic between your device and the internet goes through that server in the cloud, which means that nobody, regardless of whether your Wi-Fi is encrypted, regardless of whatever, nobody between you and that remote server can see where you go, what you do. They know absolutely nothing about you except that you're using a VPN connection. From the perspective of any sites that you visit, it will look to them like you are coming from wherever that server is. So it helps to hide your location if that seems like it's important to you, but also it's a very good means of protecting just all the data that is flowing to and from your device, to and from the internet. It isn't, perfect or foolproof, but it is a really good thing to do. You can do it at home. You can do it while you're out on the road. It's especially important to use a VPN when you're on an open Wi-Fi network, like at an airport or hotel or coffee shop or whatever. As you say, Chuck, this recent law passed says that basically your ISP, like Comcast or Time Warner or whatever, is now legally permitted to sell your browsing history to advertisers, to whoever wants it, and that sucks. I don't like that at all. So if you use a VPN at home, then you're basically hiding all this information from your ISP. As far as your ISP is concerned, you are just making one connection to the internet, and your one connection to the internet is some random server someplace in the world. It can't see specifically where you go or what you do. So that can prevent your ISP from collecting the sorts of data that they could then sell to advertisers. So that's nifty. It's going to slow down your connection a little bit. If you get a decent VPN, you're going to pay a little bit for it. They're not that expensive. There is even a way that you can get a special router that you install at home. There's your cable modem or your DSL modem, and then right next to that, you plug in a VPN router. So the router itself makes a secure connection to the internet, and then all of your other devices connect to that router either by Wi-Fi or by Ethernet, so that by just making one connection, all the stuff in your home, your smart devices, your phone, your tablet, your computers, they can all use that connection. So that's neat, a little expensive. There are also some kind of gotchas because, like Netflix, to take an example, really doesn't like people using VPN connections. So if they catch you using one, they're just going to say, no movies for you. So there are these workarounds. You can kind of exempt Netflix from using the VPN connection if you use a VPN router. It's kind of a whole long story. But other than exceptions like that, it's generally a pretty interesting idea. And I did that when I was living in France. I used a VPN router. So talk about that in the book. But I'm gonna tell you a little story about a thing that made me unhappy, having to do with VPNs. Every time I update one of my books that touches on this area, I say, and here are my recommendations for VPN providers, because there are a million of them out there. And I've used several different ones. And at a certain point, I'll say, I've been using Whitopia for a while. I really like them. Why don't you try them out? And then, time will go by. I say, I've been using Cloak for a while. I really like them. Why don't you try them out? And so people always want to know, well, what's my latest recommendation? And why would I choose one VPN provider over another? So close to a year ago, 9 or 10 months ago, I got an email from a guy who said, hey, I saw, the article that you wrote for the Wirecutter about comparing online backup services. And that was really great. I was wondering if you might write a kind of similar article comparing VPN providers. And it would be a long article, lots of research, tables, lots of tests, and, just detailed stuff about comparing VPNs. And he offered me kind of a lot of money to write that article. So I said, that's great. I would do that, not just because of the money, but because that would finally give me a way to once and for all say, here are objective facts. Here is, you can trust me. This is the truth.
I hear it
Because
coming.
the thing is,
I hear it
because the
coming.
thing is, no, just wait. If it's not necessarily evident to the randomly browsing public, but if you go on Google and search for, VPN or VPN provider, you're going to get page after page after page after page of review sites, and they all portray themselves as being objective, but none of them are. They're all affiliate driven. So what that means is that they figure out which VPN provider is going to pay them the highest referral fee to get plugged on their site, and that's going to be their top pick. It doesn't matter. Like, they will totally make up facts. They will skew the reviews. It doesn't matter what the actual facts are. They just want to make money from referral fees. So the whole, and it's actually quite a bit worse than that, but it's really, really bad. It's one of the most evil things on the internet, and that's saying something. So this whole phenomenon of VPN review sites where they're totally affiliate driven, so you can't trust anything there. I've known about this for a long time. It's been upsetting to me for a long time. And so I was really delighted that finally I would have the chance to have that one page that was truly objective, because I did the actual testing. And I'm not going to include any affiliate links because I don't want to appear biased. So I wrote the article. When it was finally published, it was published on a different site than the one I had signed up with. A lot of my wording was changed, like just enough to make it different, but not enough to prevent me from finding it. And they had completely removed my top 2 picks. They barely even mentioned them, and they replaced them with their top 3 picks, which I had eliminated as even being among my top 15 contenders. They took my incredibly detailed comparison table where I did all these time tests and bandwidth and throughput, like all this kind of stuff. I spent days and days working on this. They took out the names of my top 3 providers and swapped in the names of their top 3 providers, but left all the actual statistics the same. So those tables are now a complete lie. They do not represent even an approximate version of reality. They are an absolute falsehood. And when I confronted the guy about this, he's like, yeah, hey, it was work for hire. We paid you. We can do anything we want with your text. And I could sue him. I could, because I went back and I actually looked at the agreement that we both signed, and it doesn't say that he can do that. But he knows, and I know that I'm not going to, because it would cost more for me to sue him than I could possibly ever get back in an award. So basically he got away with it. So there is text that I wrote, although it has been substantially, fiddled with, that tells an absolutely false and misleading story about VPN providers. I am not happy about it. So I do give in my book my latest recommendations. My top latest recommendation, based on all that, like weeks of actual testing, is called Private Internet Access, or PIA. It happens to be one of the least expensive VPN providers out there. If you want to try them out, go to privateinternetaccess.com. Don't click any links. Don't click link. Don't go through affiliate sites. Don't go through review sites. Just go directly there, and you can get a free trial, and you see what you think. If you don't like it, great. Try something else. Try iVPN, or try Cloak, or try Whitetopia. Like, there's a lot of these places that actually are reputable and are good. But basically, don't believe anything you read online, even if it sounds kind of like I might have written it.
Wow. It has been very interesting since this ruling came down, or law was passed, excuse me. I've noticed a lot of VPN offers out there. Some from very reputable firms that I believe are reputable, some that I don't know that are not reputable. I just have never heard of them. I see them popping up on sites that you and I both know and respect. I have had VPN providers here not recently, as sponsors for the show. And hopefully you recognize that they are sponsor spots. And yes, I've used them, and yes, the ones I've tried and have been here, I've been very, very happy with and very comfortable with. But that's kind of amazing, Joe.
It's apart from the whole affiliate thing, there is the fact that VPN providers themselves are often really shady, really kind of shady fly-by-night organizations. Let me just be completely real here. Anyone with even moderate geek cred could set up their own VPN provider in a lazy afternoon. I mean, I know I could. If I decided I wanted to start Joe's VPN service, I know exactly how to do it. I rent a virtual server someplace, and I know what software to install, and I put a shopping cart on there, and I put some fake reviews and testimonials up there, and I say, boom, Joe's VPN service now open for business. And, as customers, how are you going to know? But maybe I'm selling you this VPN service, but I'm actually secretly watching and logging everything that you do. Or maybe I'm passing this information to the FBI, or maybe I'm passing it to advertisers or whatever. Like, you don't know. It's really, really hard to know what you're getting if all you have is just, a website and a brand name and all these reviews that are driven by how much money the provider will pay them in referral fees. So yeah, just, be super careful. Be super, super careful. And if anything looks the slightest bit suspicious, go somewhere else.
Yeah, and you kind of made a point there, and I want to make sure I reiterate it, that just because you got the VPN service, let's say that your that your provider is Comcast. Okay, great. Comcast can no longer see what you're doing. But somebody coming out the other end of that server, of that VPN service, they can do exactly what you're trying to avoid with, in this example, Comcast. They can see everything. So you're trading the devil you know for the devil you don't know.
And I'll say too, if I were a government agency that really was interested in surveillance, I might start a VPN provider that didn't look like, obviously, is coming from a government agency, but then I'm like, oh, well, I can spy on everything that goes through this tunnel. Okay. So you gotta be super careful.
Yeah. One last point I want to make sure that folks understand. When this law was passed, it was something that was coming into effect. It was not into effect. So you didn't lose anything. You lost something maybe down the road when it was supposed to take effect, but the day it was passed, the providers could absolutely capture everything you were doing. Just nothing changed. Okay, it was just a protection that was going to be put into place that now is no longer there. You'd like to think that peer pressure and publicity and all will hopefully take care of some of this. But it's because I saw so many misleading articles saying, this has been taken, now all your stuff can be sold, and it's like,
it could already be sold.
It could already be sold.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. This would have prevented it from continuing to be able to be sold. But what I'm now hearing is intimations that providers are going to go down a different route. They'll say, "Oh, sure, we'll protect your privacy for a little additional monthly fee."
Of course.
So it's always something.
A nice connection to have there. Be a shame if something happened to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Joe, we've been at this for a while. Thank you so much for so much great information. I want to make sure anything else that we want to make sure folks know is in the book, and then we'll send them where to go and get it.
Oh, there's just so much. I can't see. Maybe it could be that your head's in the way, or I'm not sure. But you used to have a transporter behind you. Maybe you still do, and I just can't see it right now.
No, it's end of life. So
yeah. So transporter was a thing that I used to recommend as a way to create a personal cloud. It's, as Chuck says, it's been end of life, so you can't buy them anymore. You can't get support from them anymore. So there are some alternative products that you should look into if you want to create kind of your own cloud rather than relying on a public service like Dropbox. So I talk about that. I have some updated advice for web privacy software like browser extensions that you can add. talking and chatting privately, dealing with, apps like on your iPhone that are, you open some new, oh, it's a camera app. Great. Oh, can I have access to your contacts? Can I have access to your location? Can I have access to your calendar? Why do you need, are you sure? That kind of stuff. I do talk a bit about this, the changes in the law and just sort of the changes in the online privacy atmosphere. So a lot of new and interesting stuff there that I think you'll find quite helpful.
Great. This sounds like a big update, an important update,
Yes.
update, very important.
Absolutely.
So takecontrolbooks.com is where you can go get it.
And this is a $15 book, as is our custom. We give a discount for people updating from an older edition, and you should have received email about that. Or if not, then you can click the ebook extras link in the book and go find out about that discount online. So we do like to take care of our customers and treat our books kind of like we treat software. Updates are sometimes free and sometimes they're discounted, but you're not going to have to buy the whole book again from scratch. But there is quite a lot that's new and different, and it's definitely worth keeping yourself updated about.
I feel a little more secure just by talking to you. Not a lot, but a little.
Maybe I should do an audiobook version so that my soothing voice will help to just make people feel happier.
I like that idea. An audiobook version of Take Control of your online privacy. There you go.
All right. Well, I'll put that on the list of ideas.
Yeah, probably better than Take Control of one of the other books that is.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't be quite so soothing.
Yes, click, go to mail, then to preferences, then to account information. Your screen will look like figure 12.
Yes.
Now click the checkbox.
Well, that's a new sleep aid. I don't. Joe, thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.
I'll talk to you soon.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. We're having way too much fun with a very serious subject. So if you have concerns like this, and hopefully this interview convinced you should have concerns like this, go check out Joe's book at takecontrolbooks.com. Until the next time, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes, links to subscribe, and to connect with Chuck on Twitter, Google+, Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, SoundCloud, the MacVoices blog, the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter, and on MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard that helps you do more with your Apple tech. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.